There comes a time in life when a woman looks around and wonders, is this really all there is? She has done everything she was told would bring happiness. She worked hard, showed up for others, kept the house in order, smiled when it was hard, and gave her best even when she was running on empty. And yet, something still feels missing. It's not about what she has or doesn't have. It's deeper than that. It's about who she's allowed herself to become. Or more often, who she had to suppress to fit the roles life expected of her. Many women live years, sometimes decades, playing a version of themselves that feels safe, acceptable, even praised. But deep inside, there's a quiet voice that keeps whispering, there's more to you. That voice is not trying to disrupt your life. It's trying to bring you back to it, back to the real you, the one you were before the world told you who to be. And here's the truth. Becoming your best self isn't about becoming someone else. It's about removing the layers that are not you, the masks, the doubts, the fears, the expectations. And that journey back to self begins with one habit. Louise Hay often taught that the way we speak to ourselves creates the foundation of our reality. Every word, every thought, every belief becomes part of the blueprint of who we think we are. And most of us didn't grow up with voices that taught us to love ourselves. We were taught to achieve, to perform, to be strong. But rarely were we taught to pause, listen, and speak to ourselves with care. That's why today, this one habit matters more than ever. The habit of conscious, loving self-talk. This habit is not about pretending to feel good. It's about telling yourself the truth in a way that heals. It's about standing in front of the mirror and saying, I am willing to see myself differently. I am open to becoming who I really am. It may feel strange at first, maybe even uncomfortable, but it's not because it's wrong. It's because it's new, and the new often feels unfamiliar until it becomes safe. So today, I invite you to pause and ask yourself something simple. Who are you beneath all the doing? What version of you has been waiting to come forward? If something inside you stirred as you heard these words, take a moment to reflect. And if you feel comfortable, share in the comments. Your story, your voice, your presence might be exactly what another woman needs to feel less alone. The process of becoming your best self does not begin with changing your life. It begins with changing your relationship with yourself. Most people try to fix the outside first. They change jobs, leave relationships, chase goals, hoping that something out there will finally make them feel whole. But what if the feeling they're looking for can only come from within? Louise Hay used to remind us that the outer world is always a reflection of the inner one. If you want to change your life, you start by changing your thoughts. But not just any thoughts. The most powerful ones are the ones you repeat every day without even realizing. The ones you whisper to yourself when no one else is around. Those thoughts carry more weight than anything anyone else could say. And for most women, those inner words are far from kind. They sound like, I should have done more. I'm not enough. I can't do anything right. And over time, those words shape how you see yourself. They become the walls that keep you small. This is why the habit of self-talk is not optional. It's essential. It's not just something nice to do on a good day. It's something to practice, especially when the day feels heavy. When things go wrong, when the fear comes in, that's when your voice matters most. Because your voice is either your anchor or your storm, and you get to decide which one it will be. Imagine, just for a moment, a woman standing in front of her mirror. She looks at herself, not to criticize, but to connect. She places her hand over her heart and says, I am learning to love myself. I am here for me. At first, she hears the old voices trying to argue, the ones that say, she's being silly, dramatic, or selfish, but she breathes through it. She stays with herself, and as she does, something inside begins to shift. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's real. A quiet sense of safety begins to grow. That safety is the beginning of everything. Because when a woman feels safe within herself, she no longer needs to seek approval from the outside. She no longer tolerates relationships or environments that drain her. She begins to walk differently, speak differently, decide differently. Not from fear, but from self-respect. So ask yourself gently, what are the words you're living by? What are the sentences that run through your mind when no one is watching? And more importantly, do they support the woman you're becoming? If not, it's okay. This is not about shame, it's about noticing. Because the moment you notice, you open the door to a new habit, one that can gently and powerfully return you to yourself. Many women have been taught to live for others. From an early age, they learned that being good meant being quiet, pleasing, and selfless. They were praised for putting others first and rarely encouraged to listen to their own needs. Over time, this conditioning becomes invisible. It hides behind busy schedules, endless responsibilities, and constant emotional labor. But underneath it all, there is often a silent question that echoes through their days. When is it my turn? Louise Hay believed that healing begins when we stop abandoning ourselves. And that includes the subtle ways we ignore our own voice. You might be making decisions based on what others expect. You might be staying silent when something inside wants to speak. You might be dismissing your emotions because they feel inconvenient. These patterns don't make you weak. They make you human. But they also reveal where change is needed. The habit of conscious self-talk is not just about repeating positive affirmations. It's about building a relationship with yourself that is based on honesty. And honesty sometimes means admitting that you've lost touch with what you truly feel. It means slowing down enough to notice the moment you say yes when you want to say no. The moment you offer help when you're already exhausted. The moment you smile when something hurts. Each of those moments is an invitation, an opportunity to pause and ask, what do I really need right now? The answers might surprise you. Maybe you need space or silence or permission to feel. Angry without guilt. Whatever it is, your voice is the only one that can name it. And when you begin to listen, you start to rebuild trust within yourself. That trust is the foundation of your best self. This process can feel uncomfortable, especially if you've spent most of your life minimizing your needs. But discomfort is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're stepping into something new. Louise often said that the only way to truly change a pattern is to first become aware of it. That awareness is what opens the door to freedom. Freedom doesn't always look like a dramatic transformation. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, I matter too. It's choosing to go to bed earlier, to cancel a plan when you're overwhelmed, to write down what you're feeling instead of swallowing it. These small acts add up. They shift the way you experience life. And with time, they shift the way life responds to you. The woman you are becoming is not someone far away. She is already within you, waiting to be heard. You don't need to search for her. You just need to begin listening. Sometimes the most powerful shift begins with the smallest decision. Maybe it's writing yourself a note that says, I hear you. Maybe it's placing a gentle hand on your heart when you feel overwhelmed. These gestures are quiet, but they are revolutionary. They remind your nervous system that you are not ignoring yourself anymore. You are showing up, even in the softest ways, and that changes everything. Let's talk about something that many women never speak out loud. The fear of being seen, not just physically, but emotionally. Being seen in your truth, your needs, your desires. For years, you may have kept yourself small, believing that staying quiet was the safest option, that blending in would protect you from rejection, that asking for less would earn you more love. But what if the very thing you've been avoiding is the key to becoming your best self? Louise Hay often reminded us that our outer world is a reflection of our inner world. If you are constantly shrinking yourself in your mind, your life begins to mirror that shrinking. Opportunities seem further away. Relationships feel one-sided. You find yourself wondering why everything feels just out of reach. But the truth is, when you stop hiding from yourself, life starts responding to who you really are. This is where the habit of self-talk becomes a radical act of self-ownership, because the words you speak to yourself determine how visible you allow yourself to be. When you say, "I'm not ready," or "I don't belong here," you unconsciously reinforce the walls that keep you hidden. But when you begin to say, "I have something valuable to offer," or "I trust my voice," those walls begin to crumble. Not because the fear disappears, but because you choose to show up anyway. Imagine standing in front of a mirror and saying, "I am worthy of being seen." At first, your mind might resist. You might feel silly or uncomfortable, but stay with it. That discomfort is your old identity dissolving. It's the part of you that learned to stay invisible, trying to protect itself. Speak through that discomfort, because on the other side is the woman you were always meant to be. Louise taught that the words we choose are not just affirmations, they are commitments. Every time you speak with love and courage, you're rewriting your internal script. You're sending a message to your nervous system that it's safe to expand, to take up space, to live fully. And here's something to remember. You don't have to wait until you feel confident. Confidence doesn't come before action, it grows through it. When you speak to yourself with compassion, especially when you feel unsure, you're building emotional safety. That safety becomes your foundation. And with that foundation, you begin to walk differently, speak differently, choose differently. If you're feeling a shift inside, if something in these words is stirring a new kind of awareness, take a breath and notice it. That small movement matters. And if you're open to it, share what you're realizing in the comments. Sometimes, writing it out helps anchor it deeper. There comes a point in every journey where you begin to see how much you've been living on autopilot. You go through your day, you meet expectations, you fulfill roles, but inside, something feels disconnected, like you're moving, but not really living. You're doing what needs to be done, but your heart feels distant. That's often a sign that a deeper version of you is ready to emerge. Louise Hay believed that awareness is the first step to change. You can't shift what you don't recognize. And many women have been conditioned to ignore their own needs, to dismiss their inner voice, and to silence their intuition. But what if your discomfort is actually a signal, a quiet message from your soul asking you to come home, not to a place or a person, but to yourself? This is where the habit of self-talk becomes more than a mindset. It becomes a way of waking up. Because when you listen to the thoughts you repeat every day, you begin to notice which ones are true and which ones are borrowed. You may hear echoes of someone else's voice telling you who you should be, what you should look like, how you should live. But then comes a pause, a moment of clarity, a choice. You get to decide which thoughts stay and which ones no longer belong. You might hear an old belief like, "I'm not good enough." And instead of accepting it, you say, "That's not mine, I choose to let it go." Louise Hay taught that forgiveness is essential in this process, not just forgiveness toward others, but toward yourself. For all the times you believed the lies, for all the moments you turned away from your own truth. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, it frees you from it. Imagine waking up tomorrow and speaking to yourself like someone you trust, someone you admire, someone you love. You wouldn't criticize her. You wouldn't ignore her pain. You would listen, encourage, and hold space for her growth. You deserve that same kindness. And the beautiful part is, it begins with one sentence, one conscious thought: I am allowed to change. This is the root of becoming your best self. not chasing an ideal, not trying to fix what isn't broken, but choosing to grow into the version of you that feels whole. You're not starting from nothing. You're starting from everything you've survived, every lesson, every scar, every moment of quiet strength. As you reflect on these ideas, take a moment to consider what you've been telling yourself lately. Are those words helping you expand, or are they keeping you stuck? Sometimes, writing a single thought down can open the door to transformation, and your voice, no matter how quiet it feels, deserves to be heard. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment to begin. Growth starts in the ordinary, in the messy, in the real. It begins the moment you choose to believe that you are worthy of your own attention, that your voice matters, that how you feel deserves space. And when you honor that space, even just a little each day, you begin to rebuild trust within yourself. Some women go through life feeling like they're always behind on healing, behind on success, behind on happiness. They compare their path to others and wonder what they're missing. But what if they're not behind at all? What if they're exactly where they need to be to receive the next lesson, the next gift, the next version of themselves? Louise Hay often reminded us that comparison is a distraction from self-love. It pulls us out of our own experience and into someone else's timeline. But healing is not a race. Becoming your best self isn't about catching up to anyone. It's about coming back to you again and again with compassion. And the truth is, the best version of you doesn't live in the future. She lives in the choices you make today. One of those choices is learning to stop punishing yourself for not being further along. This is where many women get stuck. They believe that unless they've already reached a goal, they're failing. But Louise taught that growth is a process of unfolding. It can't be rushed. It doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to patience, presence, and permission. The permission to be a work in progress. The permission to have bad days. The permission to show up as you are. When you begin to treat your journey as sacred, every step matters. Even the slow ones, even the backward ones, because they're part of your becoming. Think of a flower blooming. It doesn't force itself open. It doesn't compare its petals to the one beside it. It opens when it's ready, in its own way, on its own time. You deserve to grow like that, to unfold without fear, to explore who you are without judgment. And that starts with the way you speak to yourself during the in-between moments. When nothing feels clear, when you're not sure what's next, when you're tired, uncertain, or overwhelmed, those are the moments when your words matter most. Louise used to say, "You have been criticizing yourself for years and it hasn't worked. Try approving of yourself and see what happens." This is not about ignoring your flaws. It's about choosing a different approach. One rooted in love instead of shame. One that says, "I see you trying, and that's enough for today." Take a breath. Let go of the need to be perfect. Instead, be present. You don't have to earn your worth by doing more, fixing more, or proving anything. You are enough by being. And the habit of speaking to yourself with tenderness helps you remember that, especially on the hard days. Ask yourself now, what would shift if I stopped trying to rush my growth? How would it feel to trust my own timing? Let that question sit in your heart. Let it soften the edges of your self-expectation. And if it brings something up for you, know that you're allowed to feel it. There are moments when everything feels like too much. The noise, the pressure, the expectations. And in those moments, many women start to disconnect from themselves. They go into autopilot, doing what needs to be done without asking what they truly need. But the truth is, behind every moment of disconnection, there's usually a need that hasn't been acknowledged, a voice within that hasn't been heard. Louise Hay often reminded us that the way we treat ourselves in these tender moments shapes the entire tone of our healing. Most of us were taught to power through, to keep going no matter what. But real growth doesn't happen by ignoring your pain It happens by meeting yourself in it, with gentleness, with care, with presence. Think of a woman who's been holding everything together for years. She's exhausted. She doesn't complain. She tells herself she should be grateful. She compares her struggle to others and decides it's not big enough to matter. But deep down, there's a voice that keeps whispering, I need rest. I need love. I need to feel seen. That voice is her truth. And when she starts listening to it, everything begins to change. Because self-love isn't just about bubble baths and quiet mornings. It's about courage. The courage to say no when something doesn't feel right. The courage to pause even when the world tells you to keep going. The courage to honor your inner world, even when no one else understands it. One of the most radical acts of healing is giving yourself permission to slow down, to sit in silence, to ask, what do I need right now? And then actually listen to the answer. Louise believed that healing starts with awareness, and awareness starts with attention. When you pay attention to yourself, you begin to rewrite the story that says everyone else comes first. This chapter of your life doesn't have to look like anyone else's. Maybe your healing looks like journaling for 5 minutes in the morning, or taking a walk without your phone, or simply breathing deeply before reacting. These small acts are not insignificant. They are how you remind yourself that you matter, that your experience matters, and maybe that's what you needed to hear today. That you don't need to be anything other than who you are right now. That your softness is not weakness. That your boundaries are not selfish. That your needs are not too much. So take a moment and tune in. What have you been ignoring within yourself lately? What would it feel like to finally offer yourself what you've been giving to everyone else? If something inside you stirred while listening to this, feel free to share in the comments. Sometimes the most powerful shift begins when we speak our truth out loud. At some point, everyone arrives at a quiet crossroads. It's not a dramatic event, and no one else may even notice. But inside, something shifts. You realize that the way you've been speaking to yourself no longer fits the person you're becoming. The words that once helped you survive now feel too small for who you truly are. And in that moment, you're given a choice. You can keep repeating the old story, or you can begin a new one. Louise Hay believed that every new thought is a seed. When you choose to speak with love, you're planting a garden inside your mind, a place where compassion can grow, a space where healing becomes possible, not through effort or force, but through presence. And the habit of self-talk is how you water that garden every single day. This doesn't mean that you'll never feel afraid again, or that the voice of doubt will suddenly disappear. It means that now, when fear speaks, you have a softer voice to answer it. One that says, I hear you, but I am choosing something different. I am choosing to believe that I matter, that I can trust myself, that I deserve to feel safe and loved, even when things feel uncertain. Many women spend years waiting for someone to tell them they're doing enough, that they are enough. But what if you stopped waiting? What if you were the one who gave yourself that affirmation again and again until it became familiar? Louise used to say that when you learn to support yourself, everything else in your life begins to fall into place. Because you stop chasing validation and start living from your own truth. So imagine what it would feel like to begin each day with a moment of gentleness, not rushing, not judging, just breathing and offering yourself a few honest words. I am doing my best. I am learning. I forgive myself. These are not just affirmations. They are reminders that you are still growing, still choosing, still showing up for yourself, even when it's hard. And this is the true power of self-talk. It's not about changing who you are. It's about returning to yourself with kindness. It's about meeting each version of you with grace, the one who tried, the one who failed, the one who kept going anyway. because all of them deserve your love. If this message resonated with something in your heart, you're invited to share your reflections in the comments. Sometimes, the words we speak from the heart become exactly what someone else needed to hear. And if you feel that this space brought you comfort or clarity, feel welcome to subscribe and stay close. You belong here, just as you are.